As an economic development professional who had the good fortune of working in 30 to 40 countries over my working life, I am convinced that balanced regional development is essential for every country. This is particularly so for Pakistan. Pakistan needs balanced regional development in all parts of its country for its national survival as well as equity. As one drives through different parts of the country in Pakistan, as I had good fortune to do, one is struck by disparity in development. While in major urban centers there are all kinds of facilities are available, there are rural areas in Pakistan which have hardly any road, no safe drinking water, people walking bare feet. Now, why is development of these areas and these people necessary? I would cite not any emotional argument, but economic argument for that. If we look at development history of developed countries like United States, Japan, in more modern times, development of Korea, one will find that this has been an essential ingredient. Today, United States is very developed, but it was not always so developed. 100 years, couple of 100 years ago, it was not a developed country. And yet it was realized at the outset that while the private business was doing a lot to build railways, to bring electricity, to bring privately owned water supply companies, that rural areas were being left behind. And that's when United States government took special actions. For example, to deal with electricity issues, while urban electrification was left to private companies, rural electrification was undertaken by government-owned agency such as Rural Electrification Agency, which received special funding and special resources for bringing electricity to rural areas. State-owned land-grant colleges is another example. While big universities were being built in Washington and New York and Chicago, the government decided that every state within the United States will have government-owned universities. For that, they gave a special grant of land and money to build these universities. I am myself a product of one of these universities, in fact, two of these universities. I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering from University of Illinois in 1964. Now here is a huge university. It was even at that time more than 30,000 students, built in middle of nowhere, built in the middle of really two villages, Urbana and Champaign. And this government-owned university now ranks in one of the best in the United States. Similarly was University of Oregon, which was built in rural area of a small town called Eugene, Oregon. So United States made sure that the rural areas will have a comparable infrastructure from the start. Take example of more recent example of Korea, which at the end of Korean War in early 50s had per capita income of less than that of Pakistan. But one of the principles it adopted was to have balanced regional development. And why did they do that? Because they realized that to develop the whole country, you have to develop all parts of the country. And rural areas are just as much part of the economy as the urban areas are. What they did was they developed some sort of indices under which they decided that every time a dollar is spent on urban roads, a proportionate amount will be spent on rural roads. Same went to rural electrification, rural education, rural health facilities, rural water supply, in all aspects of economic development. As a result, Korea is one of the miracles of modern economic development. The same stories can be found in almost all parts of uh, Europe. So, this is essential. Even in more recent times, I'm familiar with the case of Turkey. And this is while I was at the World Bank. Turkey was building a particular project. I don't remember the exact numbers, but let us say the cost was about $200 million using the most modern methods. Turkey said, we do not want the most modern methods. We want labor intensive methods which will create employment. World Bank told them that the project cost will rise by about 25%. But Turkey insisted that we want manpower intensive, and especially in areas where there is high unemployment, so that there will be balanced regional development. And World Bank, of course, accepted that argument and built that project. In case of Pakistan, also we need to follow a similar strategy. And why do I say that it is necessary for national survival? Because we know that in Pakistan there is a debate going on. Is Pakistan a failed state or will it survive? And the argument is given that nobody considers themselves Pakistanis. People are Punjabis, are Sindhis, are Pathans, are Muhajirs. And why is that? I think that biggest reason for this provincial and ethnic awareness is that people in backward areas have felt that they have not reaped the benefit of independence. They have not reaped the benefit of the Pakistan. They do not see economic development. They do not see jobs. They do not see progress in their areas. So, if we want national survival of Pakistan as a state, we have to take development to the people in areas where they are. And of course, equity or fairness is very important. This is consistent with religion of the people of Pakistan, whether they are Muslims, Hindus, or Christian. All of these religions emphasize equity and fairness for people of the country. So there is argument of national survival as an for this type of development. For this purpose, Pakistan needs earmarked funding for balanced regional development. We know that in NFC there is funding for each province. We need to go a step further. We need to have earmarked funding for rural development of backward areas, whether it is in Punjab or within Sindh or within Balochistan or whether it is Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So we need special earmarked funding, not just for the provinces, but for the backward areas, so that specific backward districts and talukas can receive that balanced development. Now, unfortunately, in not only in Pakistan, but in most developing countries, corruption is a big problem. And here, I'm familiar with the example of Indonesia about 20 years ago, where corruption on urban funded projects was less than in rural projects. Rural projects had higher level of corruption. And one of the arguments was given by officials in working on rural projects that we have small development budget, and from that we have to eat more in corruption in order to be comparable to officials posted in urban areas. So while there may be 50% in Jakarta, there will be even more in rural areas. In case of Pakistan, while it may be 30% corruption in a Lahore or Karachi project, in case of Shikarpur, the officials may eat 50% or more. We have to face this phenomena of corruption head on, so that whatever funding these rural areas get, that it is used properly and spent. And of course, the government of Pakistan and people of Pakistan have to ask lender agencies, since most of our development is funded through lending agencies like World Bank or USAID or British government or Japanese government. We have to make sure to tell them that our first priority for at least next 10 to 15 years will be to build projects in rural areas, so that those parts of the countries can come to a comparable development level. And I would say here people of Pakistan have to take a position. We are seeing in our Arab world, we are seeing in developed countries where through votes and so on, people express their views where they want the development to be. People of Pakistan have to show similar tendency to let the donors know that we want balanced regional development in Pakistan for the sake of uh, national survival and for equity. Thank you so much.